Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Esoteric podcast. And I got my boy Jay Cleanse is your name, right? Your username.
My username on TikTok, sure.
Yeah. Like, what would you like me to call you?
I have no idea. Jay
Just
Cleanse
do a
is
first
fun.
name or
Jay
anything.
Cleanse.
Yeah.
I mean, my actual name is Jakob in real life. But
Okay, that's pretty sick.
But that's, yeah, I guess it's kind of weird. Like I have like different personality on TikTok versus in real life. Like,
yeah, trust me. Yeah,
like it's kind of weird. Like I don't even know.
I lived that same thing. But yeah, so he's my first guest on the first episode of the Esoteric podcast. So we're just gonna get into it. And the biggest question I always have is, what is life? And that's a very broad question, but
Yeah.
I think you have some thoughts on it. We can go small, big. The thing that's cool about podcasts is we can actually thoroughly elaborate on what we're trying to get through, because on TikTok you only have a minute or so or 3 minutes, and with a podcast you could really go into depth, which is the coolest part. So if you want to, what do you think this, there is no right answer, obviously, right? But like, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a little early in the morning for me to be thinking about these thoughts. Like, like, I don't know. Sometimes I'll be thinking about them like late at night. Like, I don't know. I have to be like in the mood, like in the mindset, thinking about it. Like, I'm not always thinking about it. Like sometimes it's hard, like doing everyday things, like studying for college. Like you can't be constantly thinking about these things. Like otherwise you just like detach from like life, and it's just like impossible to function.
It is true. Yeah, it's so funny how you can get into the zone of thinking like deep thoughts. It does happen at night more so too, which is, I wonder why that is. It's kind of interesting that it's
like
only
after you finish your day and everything, you're just like sitting back and you're just like, what is this thing? Like
you're like, oh wait, I'm conscious. I can think of all these thoughts. I don't know what is going on here.
Yeah. Do you have those moments where you like just suddenly like gain consciousness? You're just like, you just sit back and like look around. You're like what is going on here? Like, like it's just a certain mode. Like your brain just goes into a certain mode. Like, I don't know, it happens to me a lot.
Sometimes I'm a weird in between where like I'm always the observer, but then sometimes I'm just also just the normal person, that's going through the motions. And then halfway through, I'll be like, all right, I forgot that, like, this is kind of weird. Like, oh, I'm doing this. And it's like, but you can't express that to other people kind of, because it's so out of what we usually talk about in society.
Yeah. And like, we don't even have the words to like even describe these thoughts really. Like if you try talking to another person about these things, like they just look at you like you're crazy. Like
it's almost because words can't describe it. Like it's just weird.
It's literally, words are like, I've been thinking about words a lot. Like words are like really limited.
Me too.
Like they really cannot describe certain things. And if you try, you just look dumb. And like,
because
I don't know.
It shows that we really made them up. Because if there was a language of natural life, I guess to say, it would be able to describe whatever we're trying to describe, but life kind of just is. That's why language can't describe how it
imagine if we could communicate like our actual feelings, like our actual thoughts, instead of having to like put them into words.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like imagine I could look at you and see what's going on in your head
and feel exactly what I'm feeling.
Right. Feel what you're feeling exactly.
That would be real. Could be the next language. Yeah, I think that's the next language. Yeah,
if that was possible.
But I don't know. You never know. Like those ancient civilizations, they really might have had something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, how did they have such a connection to the world?
I think it's because they were using mushrooms all the time.
That's totally possible.
No, but also, it's really interesting about those ancient civilizations. Like, they're probably on a whole different mindset than us. Like,
I've been trying to I've been reading a lot about history, and it's hard to even fathom how differently conscious they were. Like we can talk about it. Yes, they're the same as us. We think they're so different. They're really not. Like they're still humans like us.
The same humans, like the same
yes
body and everything. but the mind, like, it's so weird.
It's so different,
Like,
and we can only imagine. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, like I was thinking about how like people can be in completely different mindsets. Like it's kind of like your consciousness, like what your consciousness is focused on. Like I was thinking about, like the war in Ukraine and everything. Like people, when they're in a war, like their mindset is so focused like on the war. Like they're in a completely different mindset than people like, I guess you and me who are detached from that. Like we're like, why are you guys fighting? Like this is so ridiculous.
Right, and
Like,
they're
what are you
in it.
doing? And they're in it. Like that's like they're in a completely different mindset than us. Like their consciousness is operating on like different level, like completely unrelatable. So like it's just crazy like how people can be in completely different mindsets. So I'm thinking like the people in those ancient civilizations, they must have been like on a completely different mindset than us. Like
Completely different level.
yeah, it's just so interesting.
So connected to the world and everything. Like, man, they have technologies that we can't even understand, which is crazy. They got tools that and precision in their architecture and their structures, things we can't with our technology, supposedly the best we've ever had, can't describe them. How is that so?
Wait, they had like good technologies, like advanced technology?
Yeah, there's accounts of, oh my God, of civilizations that have technology that cannot be replicated today, and that they can't even understand how they created these things. Like how, like, it's just so, it
Right.
doesn't make sense. And obviously we can't
But,
fucking
like,
ask them,
we
but
don't even know how they made the pyramids and things like that. Like,
yeah, exactly. And the precision it has with the stars and the places on Earth. And it had like they had these monuments throughout the whole entire globe, and they weren't connected, obviously. Like, yes, there were definitely trades and like people traveling and stuff, but there wasn't the internet, they weren't connecting like this.
right.
So what is that? Is that was their consciousness linked in that way? Did they have an understanding of the earth that we don't? It's
Right.
so it's you can't even, oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wonder what they were like.
I love tracking the human story because we really were just animals, right? Like, I don't really know how consciousness
Yeah.
even became consciousness in the way that we have it.
Yeah.
How does
Like our consciousness is so different than animals.
yes.
It's so interesting. Like,
How does an animal become aware of itself?
yeah, so like I guess with humans, our brains just kind of got really big. And then at a certain point we got so smart that it was like we started becoming aware.
Do you mean the physical size or like the I don't know. Do you
Well,
mean
not
the
the physical
not the
size, but
physical
like,
size? Because
well, the physical size also grew, but it's more like the intelligence grew.
right.
And like the frontal lobe, like a specific part of the brain, got much larger over a certain time period. So like I guess we just got so smart that at a certain point, like we were making all these tools and stuff. And then we just kind of became conscious, I guess, at a certain point. Like,
It's weird because now we are so aware of the awareness. I don't think like original consciousness, let's say, I guess original consciousness, like earlier humans were so aware of themselves in the way that we are now. Like, I think cameras and social media and everything makes us so fucking aware of ourselves.
yeah, like aware of like it grows our consciousness also, like
yes,
the internet, like we're connected to like everything basically, like the entire world is connected now. It's like our consciousness is like growing over in the entire world basically.
Yeah,
like that's back really, then you were just only aware of like your town basically, and like all the people you interact with. You interact with like 100 people like throughout, like, I don't know, your life.
Yeah,
like that's all you're aware of. That's your consciousness is very small in those times, but now it's like spread all over.
Yeah, like think of this, like they didn't know what was outside of their general area. Imagine not knowing the planet, not knowing how big the planet is, how many oceans there are, how many continents.
They didn't even know that they lived on a planet. They even
Yeah.
they're
Oh
like,
my
oh,
God.
they probably think about that, like, oh, I wonder what it actually is. Like, is it just flat? Does it go on forever? Like they'd probably like look, yeah, they would have no idea. They would just be living life. Like they didn't even need to think about this stuff. They were just like doing what they needed to do.
But they arguably had it better, which is so ironic.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's why I think consciousness is almost like a gift and a curse sometimes.
It's a curse. Yeah. It's kind of
Because
like a curse.
I think of it as like it's like a fucking responsibility. Because you are now given the choice of being bad or good with it or doing what you want with it. Technically, there is no bad and good, right? We just describe things like that because nature just is. Like a hurricane,
Mm-hmm.
we call it bad, but to a hurricane, it's just that. It just
Right.
is.
But it's
That's
kind of
yeah,
bad to us though when it
yeah,
destroys our crops. It's
totally.
bad
Yeah, no, it's totally not good. But it's
for
not like
us.
it does it in evil intent. It
Yeah.
just happens.
Yeah.
And we like to label these things a lot. But yeah, man, it's just crazy to think all these things. And it's weird being born. I always think about this. It's weird being born in the present and knowing that there was a past, Like,
Yeah.
think about that.
It's like we were born at like a completely random point in history. Like if you could think of it like that, like the timeline of history, like
Yeah.
randomly just dumped into a random spot. And like
Yeah.
now we're here. Like we could
And
look back at the past and like,
right.
yeah.
I always think about how crazy that is that we get the advantage of knowing what people did before us, or at least knowing,
Right.
because who knows if history is even correct at all.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
is an insane thing to think about. I don't know, man.
It is kind of insane.
There's a lot of there's just so many questions and no answers, which is fun, but it's also really like not scary.
Well,
But
when you say no answers, you mean like no answers that people know or that people are
yeah,
aware of.
and even like certain of, like
Yeah.
we have okay, so there's about 4 theories about what life is, right? Around there.
Okay.
It's either the
That's,
religious aspect that there's a creator, right?
mm-hmm.
Created all this and now we're in it. Then it could be a simulation, which any of these things are possible. Any of these 4 things or I honestly think there are
Yeah.
infinite possibilities on what
Infinite
life is.
possibilities, really. Yeah.
What life could be is whoever gets the most laughs in the next life is the richest or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? There is no telling
Yeah.
what this actually is. But it seems that the most accepted theories are that there's a God, there's a creator that did this, and that's why we're here and we serve him or whatever it is, whatever the
Yeah.
religion says. Or it's a simulation where it's like, you know, simulation theory, where it's all about computers and whatever that is. That's so
Okay.
expansive in itself.
Yeah.
And then there's the idea that this is just complete randomness, that
Hmm.
nothing is happening for a reason at all. Things just happened and that's just how things are going. It's interesting to think that there's no timeline on existence. It's not going anywhere. You know what I mean by that?
Oh, is there a timeline?
I don't know. Like, is there an end? Because in
Is
the
there
end, what happens at the end?
right? What's
What
it like
justifies an end?
when you say like it's not going anywhere? Like I don't know, is it going anywhere? Like does it all seem random or is it kind of like is there a direction to the story? Like is it like a story?
That's the question. Yeah. We could, it's fun to think of it like that. And I think that's why religion is a really big thing. Because if life was just completely random, I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle that. They don't
Yeah.
like people don't like chaos like that. And I feel like religion gives them a safety net where they're like, all right, this is all happening for a reason. The creator, whatever, wants it to happen like this. So I'd learn a
Hmm.
certain lesson, or it's all about the story of your life, is how we
Yeah.
think of life now. But I wonder, in those ancient civilizations, were they thinking of life that way? Like, were they thinking
That's
of it
what I
as a
wonder.
story or, ah,
Right. So I
it's
think
incredible.
Yeah, think about those ancient civilizations. Like they were so like in tune with the natural world around them,
Right.
like in tune with the earth, and like they like in that book Civilized to Death, like he just describes like how their religious ideas or their spiritual ideas were just about like how like the earth is like this ever giving like entity, just like giving to them. And like, so I wonder how they viewed the world around them. Like, how did they think about it? Did they think about it as random, or did they think about it as like as there's some kind of connectivity to everything, or that there's some kind of order? Like, I wonder how they actually thought about it. And yeah,
I think they understood that we come from the world. We always say that we come into this world.
yes,
We come from the world.
yeah, Alan Watts said that. He's like,
Yeah.
a lot of people think we came into this world. No, we came out of it.
Right.
Like, we came out of the world. Like, we are from the world. We are from this universe, basically.
Think of what we're made of. We're made of like a couple elements, basically. I know there's a lot more to that, but
Right.
mainly 5 elements. And that's almost in everything around us. We
Yeah.
are this. We're connected
Right.
to everything. That's what like we are.
Right. And even
we're
just, yeah, even just looking at the animals, like, I think it's pretty obvious that we come from the natural world. Like, we come from that world of the animals. Like, just looking at them, you could, like, where else would we come from, right? Like,
right.
either, like, I guess either we popped in here from another dimension or something, or we came out of that world, like that natural world of like creatures, like animals and like insects and all that stuff. Like, I guess that the ancient civilizations or the ancient humans kind of understood that idea.
I think they were way more connected with it. I think mushrooms had a huge deal to do with it. Psychedelics had a huge deal with it. I mean, I haven't done them yet, but I plan on doing it. I talk like someone that has done it.
Yeah, you sound like you've done it, but it's kind of interesting that you haven't.
I know. So like when I do try it, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But it's just really crazy how different, like, okay, so I loved your video you posted that was about, I think it was like some show or something where like it was showing how we went from basically being in the wild, being animals, and how we started to create dominance. You know what I mean? Basically, like, right? It was like a tribe in a tree or something like that. Yeah. And that idea of moving from nature into our own little zoos, as Christopher Ryan says in the Civilized to Death, like we created our own zoo for ourselves in these civilizations, which is creating all these issues because it's so unnatural. Right. You know, like if let's just say, I always think about this. This can go everywhere, really, but I'm going to go this way. Consciousness, I don't believe that. Okay, it's just so hard. It's hard. Let's just say dogs gain consciousness like us. It's very clear that once a creature or whatever, an organism has consciousness, it's based on decisions of good and bad and values. If, let's say, dogs gain consciousness, all dogs gain consciousness, and they had their own civilizations, there would be awful dogs and there would be amazing dogs, like moral wise. You know what I mean by that? Like, I think the possession of consciousness is really just a test of morals, almost, of what you think is right and wrong. What do you think about that? Yeah, it's like once you gain consciousness, like now you kind of like have a choice between like right and wrong, kind of like now it's not as simple as like you just do what your instincts tell you to do. Exactly. It's like we used to run on instincts, and we overrode those instinctive feelings, and now we overthink about everything. I actually was just listening to Alan Watts before we hopped on here. Helps me get in the right mindset. And he was talking about how we used to run on instincts, and then once we started thinking, And that creates the question, did I think enough? Did I calculate enough about this? And obviously you can never think the whole situation through. So it starts, you're overthinking.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, how we got to this area of fucking humanity, because it seems that we overthink everything and it's causing us issues because I don't think we were supposed to do this.
So we just started overthinking and then just like making life harder for ourselves, I guess.
Right, in a way. I've been reading this book that's been so interesting. And it's asking, it's called The Dawn of Everything. And it's been asking the question, where did equality, or where did that basically end? Like, there's an idea that, you know, who's it called talks about it in Civilized to Death? Christopher Ryan talks about how there's like the egalitarian civilizations.
Societies.
What is, yeah, like what do they, yeah, societies, or yeah. What does that even mean though? What does it mean to be equal? Yeah. You know? Because there's so many questions when you hear the word equal. Okay, are you financially equal? Are you spiritually equal? Are you, you know, like, are there hierarchies? Is there a political order? Like, how are you equal? It's a hard question, right? Because like, what do they mean by that? So that's why I've kind of like deterred from the word egalitarian, because it's really not specific.
Right.
But anyway, I'm trying to think about where I was.
Yeah.
So you're saying, like, where does inequality start? Which is a great question. And they're talking, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but so far they've said that the creation of property is what starts the idea of inequality. The fact that, you know, like, okay, now I own this land and I have the resources on it, and now you need to work for me, and now I am more powerful than you, you know?
Right.
So it's interesting how we got to this point.
Yeah.
Because like, who owns the land? Well, what says you own the land? Pieces of paper?
Right. Yeah, you really just kind of made that up. You just decided.
We did.
Yeah, that's so made up, but
yeah. It's just a crazy idea. And now it's common. It's very common to think, okay, they own the land. But who really owns it? The government? Does the government own our land? And then who is the government exactly? People we selected, but like, you know, there's dirt in there. You know, there's dirt in there.
Right.
And a lot of foraging societies always, he talked about this in the book, in Civilized to Death, how you couldn't translate like material wealth into power, which is so fucking important, because that means you can't buy your way to power, which clearly is how you do it nowadays. And I feel like that makes it so much more equal when you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think that was a really important aspect of the hunter-gatherer societies, was in the way they, like, property was not a thing, like, except for your few personal items that you would carry around, but they didn't have time to like claim land or to like do any of this crazy stuff. Like, they were just wandering the wilderness. Like, they didn't claim property.
And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a really interesting way of like the difference between the hunter-gatherer societies and our societies. And like, I think that might be like one of the problems with the way we live now is like our obsession with property and like ownership and like collecting. We love to like hoard wealth, like hoard items. Like, this is mine. Like, we love collecting all this stuff. Like, hunter-gatherer societies didn't do that at all.
In my book, it's talking about how surplus created the fact that we have surplus. No. The book that I'm reading.
I thought you said my book. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. I meant the one I'm reading right now. But
okay.
It's talking about how a surplus of things actually creates basically power, almost. Like, if I have a ton of something, I can like sell it out, you know what I mean? Like, or if I only had a little bit, I don't know, it's tough to exactly describe, but a surplus of things I feel like does create more issues than it solves. You know, I
How
was
many
actually,
people are hoarding?
yeah, because when you have a surplus, you keep it for yourself.
Well,
Well, nowadays at least.
nowadays, but if everybody was used to sharing everything,
Right.
then there would be no problem. It's a surplus. Yay, like good for everybody.
I liked
But
how
like, yeah,
I liked how in old like civilization or foraging societies they would not shame, but like they wouldn't let anyone's ego get too big. The best hunter in the group, they'd kill a huge like let's say bear or something. They bring it back and they'd be like, "Oh, you only got that big of a bear? Like that's not your best shot." Like they kept his ego down so he wasn't like, you know what I mean? That's so
yeah,
genius because nowadays it feels like we just blow everyone's ego up and then they become, they got this power trip and then they get power. And if I like that way of keeping everybody on a human
humbled.
scale, we stay humans. Like that's how we stay humans is we humble each other. But when we
Right.
build these egos up, like these people are
Yeah.
gods or something, it's
Yeah. They
like,
feel like they're above everybody else,
right.
or they
And
have the
they
right.
are because we make them above us.
Right. I guess
We
in
allow
this
that.
society, wealth makes you above everybody else. Like power, wealth, and power, like all these other factors that are like controlling our society,
Yeah.
like completely different.
It's so the the fucking difference between us and what we were is
Yeah,
so astronomical. It's
it is.
so I wish we could teleport someone from that time into this time. They would be like,
Right.
"What the fuck is going
Exactly.
on, dude?"
They would be, yeah.
We're I always say this. I think we're due and we're in need of a conscious revolution. We really need to be aware of what we're doing and we need to try to somehow fix it.
Yeah.
And I believe it's going to I'm also reading this book called The Fourth Turning, and it's saying how life is really measured on cycles. And there's always four constant cycles going on, or like there's life basically moves in cycles. And the shifts of generations is really important because they bring along new ideologies to the old ones. So right now we got, I don't even know what they're technically called, but how old are you?
I'm 21.
Okay, me too. I'm 22. But
Okay.
what are we? Generation
Z.
Z? Gen Z?
Yeah.
Sure. The new people, like the new generation is what? Gen X?
I have no
No,
clue.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Millennials? I don't
Yeah.
know. Fucking anything.
Yeah. I don't know.
You got boomers. You got I guess people, I don't even know. I don't know. Boomers. And then what's in between boomers?
I
I don't
honestly
know.
don't. I don't keep track.
Yeah,
Wait, I
me either.
think
I
the new
don't.
generation is Zoomers because they're on
Zoomers.
Zoom. They're using Zoom. They're
Oh, that's
born
pretty
during
funny.
COVID or something, or growing up.
So we basically have these four things where we have elders and their generation. Then we have the midlife people and their generation. Then we have the young, like our generation, which is in the young adult generation, like life cycle. And then you got the young kids. And we constantly, these ages shift. And I feel like our generation and the one before us, or no, after us, is going to make big changes once we get into positions where we can make big changes.
Right.
And I feel like it's really due because I feel it when I'm with people our age. Like I can tell that they don't subscribe to the way that we're living. That like I think it might be in Civilized Death when they talk about capitalism, and only 40%, I think it was like 40% of people said that, or no, 49% of people said that they don't agree with capitalism, like that they're living in it, but they don't agree with it. That's a big percent. Like
Right.
to disagree with the way we're living. And I feel like that trend is only going up, honestly. So it's just so interesting that we have to all agree as a society to live a certain way. And that way dictates the way we do things and who has power and who has, these possessions and who's making the calls for these possessions. It's really complex.
It is. It's so complicated. But it's like, who really does run our society?
Right.
like at the end of the day, like who's really deciding like what goes down? Like, is
And
it the government?
do they deserve to be deciding?
Right.
But how do you determine that?
Right. Like, and also, yeah, like when you said about the younger generations, like I can't imagine the younger generations being in those same like positions of power, like as like politicians. Like all the politicians are like 80. Like
Yeah.
they're all like super old. And
Yeah.
like the younger generations like just cannot relate to them in like at all. Like,
Not at all.
they're so like different than us in some way. I don't know.
They're almost aliens.
Yeah, it literally feels like they're not even human.
It's insane. It's really crazy. And every time not all old people, but I talk to a lot of old people because I serve and I've talked to a lot of old people, obviously. And they all all they're talking about always is probably because they've grown up watching the news and they still watch the news every day, probably. All they talk about is just political stuff, what the weather's like, and if you're getting a job and going to college and having a successful career. Seems to be all they care about most of the time. And it's hard to like I always try to like break down that boundary that they have, that's all they want to discuss and everything. You know what I mean? Like I want to
Mhm.
let's talk about something different for once.
Right.
But they can't. It's actually, I'm pretty sure it's like a study where after the age of 35, you're almost like set in your ways. I don't
Yeah.
know if I don't believe that 100% because I think you could change your mind whenever. But that's the statistic thing is like once you're 35, you're really set in the way you think, supposedly. And you could see it with a lot of people. And those type of people are in political positions, making decisions for people that
Right.
don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, because it's like that's the world they grew up in. Like that's all they needed to focus on in their world. And that's all they really had access to. That's all the information they had access to when they were growing up. Right? Like politics, the news, and what your job is going to be, right? That's all they're thinking about. But like our generation is not like that at all. We have like access to much, like the internet is like completely opened like our perspective on like everything. Like we're completely in a different mindset now. Like we cannot relate to that way of thinking at all. It's just
I
so
agree.
interesting.
I think the internet has changed thinking and the way we live more than we give it credit. It's opened
like,
our eyes to so many new things.
Yeah, we haven't realized how like impactful it is, or like how significant it actually is. Like maybe like in I don't know, like 30 years, 20 years or something, we'll like start realizing like, oh wow, like that was actually really significant. Like that was a huge change.
I think we're young in it right now. That's why. Not age wise, but think of this. Internet's really only been around 20 years, about more, right. A little bit more than that.
See, if you think about it, we're like the first generation of the internet, like the internet generation.
Yes. Yeah.
Like we are the first ones.
Yeah.
So we're like early to we're just like,
and it's expanding our consciousness.
Right.
Like I always try to read every comment on my video, and like I'm realizing these are all conscious people that have their own opinions and their own lives and everything. And it's really insane how complex that is. We all have this power of consciousness, and now we're sharing it finally. Because think of it, if you lived in the past, there was only newspapers, news on the very, very limited sources of output into the world.
And it's also controlled. It's
filtered completely.
Your information is given to you by your media source, and they give you the information they want to give you.
And
so
how are they what is the inspiration to put these stories out? Money.
Right.
So how true is your
and
story?
They're also like in bed with politicians, so like they're all like working together to direct like the public's opinion in certain ways to like control what people are thinking.
It's
and all
insane.
That stuff. Yeah.
Do you think, this is a really interesting question I think about a lot, do you think they can like whoever they is, you could say whoever, you know what I mean, I know what you mean, control us on purpose?
Depends for what.
So a lot of people are like, oh, they want to keep us working and, us, and all the like, they want to keep us exploiting us and everything.
Right.
Do you think they're doing that on purpose with malicious intent?
Right. So I don't know if they have the intent on doing that, like consciously. I don't know if they're consciously doing it, but it's almost like the systems that are here like automatically do it in a way. Like it's weird. It's like yeah, I don't know, something like that. Like
I'm gonna share with you what I think.
Okay.
They're taught this way. They're taught business, right? Profits and losses. That's what they were told to do, I think. Jeff Bezos, he understands business is all about trying to get higher profits than losses. So to him, I don't think he sees it as him, exploiting people. He's just doing what he's been taught his whole life. Profits over losses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're intentionally doing it. I think that they just don't know any better. Should they? Probably. But maybe they just haven't thought of that.
Well, like, what should they be doing theoretically?
It's a good question. Like, is it millionaires or billionaires' responsibility to fix the problems in the world?
And even can they though? Like, are they able to just suddenly fix problems if they decided to? Or is the economy and like capitalism and all that, it's a system that just runs on profit. Like I don't know if people necessarily have like the freedom to just create whatever project they want. I don't know. Like it's kind of complicated. Like I don't know how it works necessarily, but I wonder if people could just do that. Like imagine Jeff Bezos suddenly decided to imagine we brought him onto the podcast and like convinced him, hey, Jeff Bezos, save the world, do it. And he's like, okay, I got you.
All right, I got it. Yeah.
Like, what would he do?
Well, don't you think it would already be done though? Who doesn't want that title? Savior of solved world hunger.
Right.
Who the fuck doesn't want that title?
Right.
So maybe it's not that simple. Because obviously someone would have done it. But maybe not. Maybe not though. Like,
yeah.
Because I saw Elon Musk tweeted like something like to some person was like, retweet this or like this or whatever, and I'll solve world hunger or something like that. Can he just do that? I mean, he tweeted it like he could.
Yeah, I think he just tweets whatever random things just to like annoy people.
It's funny. What do you think about Elon Musk?
So Elon Musk, he is obviously very rich. He made a lot of money from like his companies. But I think he has a goal. Like I don't think he's like the other billionaires. I don't think he's interested in the profits necessarily. I think he's more focused on his actual like goals. Like he wants to get certain things accomplished. Like he wants to create electric cars and he wants to create like rockets and all these technologies. He wants to create like these Neuralink chips, special chips. Like he's focused on like actual projects. It's kind of, it's a little bit different. Like Jeff Bezos would be like mainly focused on the money, like just profit. Like let's just figure out let's make as much money as possible. Yeah. But I don't know if Elon Musk is like that.
Yeah, I look at Elon Musk as like the Einstein of our time, kind of. Like he's trying to progress humanity, That's what it seems like. Does he have, malicious intents? He might. It's totally possible that he's like, but I think for the most part, he really is trying to progress humanity as much as someone can in a world full of money. So like he understands that he needs revenue,
right,
in order to, like, he really wants to get us to colonize outer space.
Right.
Which is definitely, I mean, I don't know. I always feel weird about that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if we should do that.
Right.
I don't know.
It's kind of interesting to think about.
It is. Because, like, first of all, we got enough problems here.
Right.
Second of all, I can't imagine what it would cost to leave this planet. Then what? You're gonna have the ruling class in fucking Mars and the
Right.
fucking peasants living on Earth. Like, first, yeah,
Right.
that sounds like an issue.
Like, what would be the point of colonizing outer space if like we still have all the same problems we have now?
What would be
Like,
the
why
point?
would you want to why would you want to spread this, whatever this civilization is? Like, why would you want to spread that? It sucks. Like what's the point of that?
Why does humanity need to go on?
Right. Exactly.
I always think about that. Why are we so insistent on living? It's so weird. Like, it's obvious, right? It's instinct, I think,
Yeah.
to be alive. I don't know, man.
But if there's no quality to life, then what's the point of continuing living, right? Like, imagine if life all day was just like constant pain, like everyone was just like constantly suffering and like it was just not fun at all. Like, then what would be the point? What would be the point of living?
Alan Watts, I love when he says this. He says, the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, is the game worth playing? Because that's what you do before you play a board game or anything. You evaluate, is this game worth playing?
Right.
Or should I just end it? So, like, I honestly I don't think about killing myself every day, but I honestly ask myself, is this worth it? And you know what's so fucking like ironic and curious about life is that death is no one knows it. It's uncharted. No one knows what happens after. So it's like, ooh, you could end your experience. You have the choice, but you're rolling the fucking dice. You don't know what's gonna happen after, and that's so like, that's just so existence of itself, if that makes sense. Like, that's just so that's so nature, right? Like, oh, we can't give you an explanation of what happens. It just happens.
So it's like, that's what's like holding you back. It's like this fear of like, what's after death? Like, we just don't know what's after death. So like, does that confuse us about life also? Like maybe there is a purpose to this life.
Right.
Like then we can't just end it, right?
If we knew what death was, we would know what life is, which is ironic. We don't know what life is to begin with, but we would certainly know if we knew what death was. Because to know one, we would know the other, I feel like.
Well, I feel like death definitely makes us start thinking about life.
A lot.
But I mean, if death was just nothing, for example, like when you die, you're just gone, right? Like, that wouldn't really tell us what life is.
It wouldn't.
It would just make us start thinking like, oh, like we got to think about life more, right? Like, death just really makes you appreciate life. Like, you really, like when you, like really gives you perspective. Like death is like the end of life. So you got to start looking at your life as a whole. You got to like look at the whole thing now and be like, what is life, right? Like, what is this whole thing? Like, all the little things don't seem important at that point.
That circled beautifully to the question.
Yeah.
What is life?
Right.
Like, what
that's really the main question,
experience? Right? It really is.
Right.
I don't see any other question that's more important than that.
So what do you really mean by the word life?
That's a great question. Yeah. I guess it's the oh, it's so conscious. Oh my God. I guess it's just the awareness of existence, or existence itself is what life is to me.
Mm-hmm.
None of this makes sense, dude. Like, okay, we're put on this planet, right? We're the only motherfuckers with consciousness on this planet. We have not observed life outside of our planet. So from what we know, the universe is ever expanding. There are billions and billions of planets just like ours. There's definitely life on those planets, we think. But there, at the same time, maybe our situation is so incredibly rare that we are the only people with consciousness. You know, like what if other planets are full of life, just like dogs and cats and all this shit, but they don't have consciousness?
Right.
Could
Yeah. What if
like
consciousness is like a 1 in a billion chance or something, like a
and
super
doesn't
rare
it sound
thing?
like it could be?
Yes, straight up.
The
Because
awareness of
that
this?
also takes you to the Fermi Paradox. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
The Fermi Paradox. It's this question that's like,
Oh, I
if
think
the
I know.
universe is so big, the universe is like infinitely big or whatever, there's billions of planets. Why don't we see like any aliens? Why don't the aliens pull up? Like, where are the aliens, right?
Right.
Like, shouldn't there be more advanced life than us around here? Shouldn't they have like started colonizing all these planets and like spreading around? And they should be here.
There's
Or we should see some signs.
we should, right? It would make sense.
But the fact that we don't see any signs of aliens makes you start to consider that like maybe we are like extremely rare.
Yeah.
Maybe we are more special than we realize. Like,
and why? Yeah. Why us? Why?
Yeah.
That's the
what did we
fucking
do to deserve
question.
this?
It is a curse, but it's also awesome at the same time. The awareness
Oh,
of awareness.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like I wish I could just be a hunter gatherer sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
So
screw all
simple.
this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just like, it must have been so awesome just like living like I just try to imagine how they lived. Like,
Me too.
they were just free. Like, they were free to just do what they wanted. Like, the world, they felt like they owned the world, basically. Not that they owned it, but like the world is like their playground almost. Like, they're just free to explore and like just hang out with their friends and just like catch some animals and like just do whatever they want.
Just
Basically.
vibing. You're just chilling.
Yeah,
like,
you're just vibing and chilling and like nothing to worry about really besides like catching your food. But you did that a million times. Like,
you know how to do it. Your ancestors have been doing it forever. They've been doing it for so long. It's like, oh, I love that part in the book where the Civilized to Death, where he was like, you know, when it rains, they laugh. When it doesn't rain, they laugh. When they don't catch food, they laugh. When they do catch food, they laugh. Like,
yeah,
they've been through this so much that they know it's going to be tough, but they're going to get through it because they've been doing this forever.
right.
And we can't say that about the way we're living right now. No humans have ever lived like this. There's no one that we could get any advice from. No one's ever had the internet. There's no advice for this shit or like whatever is going on. But I want to go back to the I love talking about aliens and how come, you know.
Yeah.
So you said we should definitely see them, right? Which is totally reasonable. We definitely should see them. There's no way we have the highest technology out of everybody. There's not a lot of people raise the question, do we not see anyone? Because by the time a species gets to the point where they can do that to like sort of travel, they just self implode or they realize that it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what if technology that gets that advanced is just too much for consciousness to handle? And it's simply, why did we make the nuke? Why would we make that?
To blow each other up.
There's no other reason. Why the fuck would you make something that could destroy an area for 50 years? Why? That's just like, so
yeah, it's so weird.
I feel like humans are in fact doomed because of ourself almost at some point.
Right. It almost looks like the smarter a species gets or the more conscious it gets, like the more self-destructive it gets. Like they start building nukes to blow each other up. So I hear what you're saying. Like maybe just the more advanced you get, it's just you're just bound to kill yourself.
Maybe that's why we don't see anyone.
Yep. Right. Maybe that's why we don't see them.
It would make sense.
And then we're headed for the same thing. Like that's our doom now. We're headed to just kill ourselves, I guess.
I really want to see the ending of our species. Not like I don't want it to happen. Like I just want to see what causes it. And how does our story end? Because it's going to end at some point. I don't know if you know, but like I think it's in like 4 billion years or 7 billion years. I think in 4, there's no more oxygen on this planet, or it might be even million. I'm not sure exactly, but either 4 million or 4 billion years from now, there's going to be no oxygen on Earth. So we're going to die unless we can come with some technology that fixes that. And then black holes our star is going to fucking explode.
Yeah, our star is going to explode in like a few billion years.
So we are going to die at some point. This species is going to be done, which it's so insane to know that as we're going. So we just have to ask the question. This is just like asking about death. What do we want to do if we know this ends? Is there a point in this endless, we fucking just produce. That's all we do is produce and consume.
Produce and consume. Yeah, just constant.
Is it worth it? At what point is it like, all right, all of this is going to end. So what are we really doing?
Right. That's one of my favorite questions. Like, what are we really doing?
I always say that. It's so simple.
What are we doing?
What are
it's
crazy.
Doing,
like so many of us go to our jobs and we have to put on this is why when you're talking about the forgers, it must be so freeing not to have these bullshit relationships with your bosses and like this. You don't even respect the person, but because of your position, you have to respect them. And, you come in with your cup of stimulant in hand and you're like, fuck, I got to do this because I have to live. But like, I have to work to live. And now I'm living to work. And
you have to live on like your little apartment and like on your street and everything. It's like,
just because someone says they own it.
Right. Like, but like, it's so weird because like, if we really just wanted to like live happily, like what do we actually want out of life? Like, don't we just want to like live happily and just vibe? Like, I don't get it. Like,
I think the answer would be minimal work, as minimal as much as we need, like whatever gets the job done. Right. Whatever basically lets us live minimally and leisure. Because who doesn't, if you ask anyone what they want to do, most of the time the answer is nothing. I love doing nothing. That's my favorite thing. Like, that's why when someone's like, what do you want to do for a job? I don't want to do a job. Like everyone wants to do nothing. And it's ironic that we basically force ourselves into doing so much. And then we have so little time to do nothing.
Well, like most people like doing things, but they just don't want to be forced to do it. Like you don't want to have to do it because this is your job and you're forced to do it. Like you just kind of want to do what you want to do, really. Like
that's the egalitarianness, I think, and the autonomy of I don't have to do something, but if I wanted to, I can. Like because even when you do nothing though, like I was saying, like, I want to do nothing, but once you start doing nothing, it gets boring. So like honestly, like there's times where I want to work, I want to do something, I want to clean, I want to cook, like you want to do these things because nothing gets boring. But when you're forced to do something, it feels like you're being robbed of your humanity almost.
Yeah. Right. You're being like robbed of your autonomy or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, it's fucking crazy.
So I'm just like, why can't we just go back to hunting and gathering? Like, if this whole society sucks, like, let's just go back to hunting and gathering and just vibe. Like,
it would be tough. Well, obviously we wouldn't be able to do exactly what they were doing because that's impossible now. That's my question is how do we, everyone's like, oh, you're making these videos, but you don't do shit. What the fuck do I do? Where do we start? Where does the reformation of the way we live start?
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you depend on a system and then change it? What do you do while you're depending on it, while it's changing?
Right.
How does that even work?
What would it even mean to change our system? Like, our economic system, like the way we produce and consume resources. Like we would have to change the way money works. Like, see, hunter-gatherers had no money. They didn't have they weren't producing anything, or they were consuming. They would just hunt and gather. That's all they consumed, really.
Right.
They would just go out and collect some berries and collect some animals, and that's it. And that's all they really needed to support themselves.
Still all we need.
Right. It's still all we need, really, at the end of the day. But now I guess we just decided to create all these like factories and stuff, and like produce all these like materials, which at the end of the day don't even make us happier.
They don't.
Like,
no. They make us work more. We're working
right.
more than ever. And we're supposed to be the most advanced species.
Right. It's like the smarter we get, the dumber we get.
Right. It just seems that the intelligence, like you said, is a curse, because the smarter we get, the fucking harder this gets.
Right.
But I think this is where consciousness should come in, the awareness of what we're doing. Because we all have, I always think about this, everyone gets consciousness for free. You get born with consciousness. Do you know the value of like how much would you pay for consciousness? Let's have a fun conversation. How much would you pay for consciousness?
Oh wow.
It'd be somewhere in, how could you even value it? It's unvaluable.
Yeah, you cannot.
It'd be in the trillions. But we all get this insane ability for free.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to harness it. We're not taught how to use it.
And like, yeah. And even if you zoom out to like the bigger picture of the universe, like consciousness might be the most like rare and precious thing in the entire like universe. Like it could be like, we're like the one in like a trillion chance that like we actually exist. So
yeah,
it is really like a gift almost, but a curse at the same time.
Think how crazy it is though that, okay, the theory is the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
Boom. The universe was created. Sure.
Yeah.
But oh my God, dude, this is breaking my mind. The idea that there was nothing, whatever that even means, where is nothing? I don't even know. There was nothing. And then a bang happened, right? And then now there are universes and fucking the idea of spaces.
Yeah.
Crazy. Oh my God.
So like, I think in the Big Bang, there was no time before. So like, there wasn't even nothing before it because there was no before. There's no, like time started.
It doesn't even make sense.
At the Big Bang, which, yeah, our brains cannot even like really comprehend that stuff. Yeah, it's wild.
And then, okay, so that happens. Fucking planets everywhere. Then they start to sustain, some planets start to sustain life, living organisms on them.
Yeah.
And then at some point, it created a species that was capable of thinking and being aware of the bang itself.
Right.
And like of the creation, which is what?
Right. And if you think of like these organisms are really just part of the universe.
Yeah.
In a way, they're just like creatures, like they're just essentially just another thing in the universe. So at that point, it's really like the universe is looking back at itself. It's like looking back at itself and like becoming aware of itself.
That's what people mean when they say that we are just the universe experiencing itself.
Yeah.
I feel like people get all like confused with that saying, but that's really what it means, is that the earth the universe created the earth, and then the earth created us. And then now we are able to fucking speculate and observe.
And observe all that. Right.
Oh man, it's so crazy. We really are like the most insane species ever. Like from that we know of, like,
or like just this existence itself is just absolutely insane. Like
why?
Like the fact that any of this is even happening is just
like why? I don't want an answer because there's not.
Yeah, it's just so random. Also,
is this?
Right.
It's so crazy. And like you are also, it's so crazy how you are, well, we think of ourselves as not our body almost. You know, you say my arm, my leg, like you own them, but you are it.
Yeah.
You're not beating your heart right now, but you are. You're not breathing, but you are. You can't.
It's just
explain how you do it. Yes, you just.
It's just happening. Alan Watts says this a lot. Like it's just happening. It's like everything is just everything just is.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing it. Like you're not even thinking right now. It's just happening. Your thoughts are just happening. Like it's all just it's natural. Like think about the natural world. Like
It's
things
so
just
funny.
happen.
We can't even explain it with. Nah, I know what you're saying, but it's so
Yeah,
hard to explain because words don't describe it. Because I love when Alan
exactly.
Watts uses the gong because he's like he's like experience life itself is this, doom, and he just hits the gong and it plays, and it's like, yeah, because that describes it. Like it's just this.
It just is. Yeah, it's just
Just
here,
why? There is no answer.
and it's crazy.
Fucking crazy, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate that you have the ability to have these conversations with me.
yeah. I
That too, man.
appreciate.
Like I know I'm me because I know you're you. You know, like
Wait,
does
what
that
does
make
that mean?
sense?
You just said a bunch of
So
words. I
I just listened to an Alan Watts thing about this where he was like, I know I'm me. Like I know I'm myself, I'm Mark,
uh-huh.
because I know that you're you. Does that make sense? It's kind of trippy.
It probably does make sense, but those words aren't really communicating our idea.
Right. So let's try to put it in a different way. Let's say if there was no other, let's say you were the only human on this planet, you wouldn't know yourself because you simply don't know anybody else. It's
But
hard to
wouldn't you still
summarize.
know? Wouldn't you still know that you're
Right. But like, I know I'm me because I'm saying the same thing. I know I'm me because you are you, but it's hard to, I
but do
can't
you
put it.
really know that you're you though?
That's the question. Who am I?
Or like, yeah, I remember like when I was a little kid, like I would have these like existential like sudden thoughts, like just out of nowhere. I was once like, why am I me? Like, and this thought
Question.
just hit me, like this feeling just hit me, like I could have been anybody, but I'm me. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. And
Like,
you're the
yeah,
first you that you know of. Like no one else has had your
yeah,
exact experience. That's why I always think it's so like you got to realize how you're a one of a kind, literally one of a kind. Like no one has ever been you. No one's ever been had your parents, had your let's say siblings or whatever, had your friends, had grew up in the place you grew up in. They could be very similar, yeah, but they've never been exactly you,
yeah,
which a lot of people don't they don't realize how special that is. Like you
yeah.
really every one of us really
Every
is.
single person, yeah, really has like their own unique perspective and unique experience that like nobody else is really going to understand your
Yeah.
personal experience.
And it alters the way you think and you use your consciousness. It's
Yeah.
so weird. And then I think about consciousness and I think about how everyone has different consciousnesses. Like me and you, let's say we're on the same level, kind of like we can
Yeah.
have these in-depth conversations, but we're not, we don't think exactly the same. And the way I'm thinking of it is not the way you think of it. We're seeing it in
Mm-hmm.
different, very,
Yeah.
very specific scopes. It's just that to me is crazy. That's why I
Yeah.
think like when you think of the term reality, everybody really is in their own reality because that's how you view the world. That's how the way you think. That's your consciousness is
Yeah.
crazy.
If you think about it, your mind is creating your reality.
Yeah.
It's happening inside your head. Like everything that you experience, that you feel is reality, is really inside your mind. It's like your mind is creating that. So like in a way, you only experience your own mind.
Yeah.
You're only
Yeah.
inside your own mind. And like your senses kind of like pick up information and like tell your brain what to think, basically. And then your brain kind of just creates your reality. each person's brain is like creating their own reality.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Do you think in words?
No.
No. How do you think?
That's kind of a really hard question because like
it's a very hard
if
question.
If it's not in words, then how do I explain it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I'll describe it's tough. I think about it, I'm like, all right, because when I'm thinking in my head, I am speaking words, but at the same time, I also think in pictures and video, and I'm almost like videos, almost like a, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, like scenes almost.
Yeah. Or like, I also think it's really helped that we have videos and movies and the internet animations, things like that have really expanded our consciousness big time.
Yeah.
I really think that's helped a lot. Cause now when I think of, okay, right now, think of Mars. You know what it looks like. We've seen
like a picture pops up in my mind.
Now play a asteroid hitting Mars. You could see it. You could see it. Like we just
a movie just played in my head.
Just played in your head, and you don't even know how you did that, but you did. That's what's so crazy about consciousness, that it's just, there's no limitations on it. It's ever expanding, and it can't be it can't be controlled, nor does it want to be.
Oh, yeah, it kind of just does its own thing, really. Yeah, and it can just like, the imagination is also so powerful. Like you could really imagine anything. Really.
Yeah.
Like your mind can just wander to like any place you want. Just like I do that all the time. Like I just like sitting somewhere and I'll just be spacing out and just imagine. I can just like dive into my imagination and just like imagine anything. It's crazy.
People will call it crazy, but think of this, like you can make a whole TV show, book, whatever you want, movie in your head. Yeah, like if you don't write it down, whatever, but
yeah,
you can create a character. You can just sit here and play out your own movie and make it whatever you want it to be. That's why people think, I know this sounds ignorant, but it's not. People think and I know it's very hard to make movies, shows, and books. Very, very hard, because you sit there and once you start, you're like, fuck, what do I do? But really, it's super simple at the same exact time. Just create. Just randomly make anything. Okay, character named fucking Tom. He has red hair. He probably has a funny mustache. I'm just making this shit up and just go with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not that hard, but it is, because we overthink it so much.
If you want to make something good, then you probably got to put more thought into it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You can make trash if you just.
But it is kind of cool to think about how, like, all these books, like, for example, like Lord of the Rings, like this whole series of books, like somebody made that up in their imagination.
I just thought
the whole story. They just like
the whole thing,
every imagining detail. Some whole like story. They probably had like a whole world in their mind and like all these characters and like this whole thing in their imagination. They put it into a book. It's just crazy.
No, it's cool. They could probably, I don't know, I've never talked to someone that made a book like that, but like, it's either that they, as they're writing it, they're imagining it, or they imagine it and then they put themselves in it and look around when they're in it. You know what I mean? Pretty crazy thought, but
yeah, I don't know if they put themselves in it, or maybe they just like create a whole world as if they're God, like they're God, and in their mind is like this whole world that they kind of make, and they control like these little characters in it, and then they kind of tell a story in that world.
It is. I always think about how amazing art is. Art is something that is so human. Art is so human because I think art is another language, actually. It describes things that can't be described in words.
Exactly.
Like the fact that a movie or a book or a painting can make me cry, like feel an emotion so heavily. And it necessarily doesn't even say anything. It could just be a movie with no words or anything, or a painting.
Yeah.
Something with no like words can make me feel a certain way. That's just like so fucking powerful.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, but
really
it really
insane.
is like another kind of language almost.
It is, yeah.
Like you're conveying a thought almost, or like an idea, or like a concept into other people's brains.
A
So that
feeling,
they a
even.
feeling, yeah. These feelings, like words can't really do that as well. Like not even close. Like
I
you can't
agree.
really communicate these things in words. Whereas like a movie or a painting, even like these things could like convey feelings at a different level than words
So
can.
true. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't explain it to you, but let me just show you this. Like,
Right.
let me paint it
Paint it
necessarily
right.
on into a movie where, okay, and you know it's so fucking cool is that everyone has their, just like consciousness where everyone has their own like their own thing, individual. Art means something to you and you only. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can look at something and you get your own take from it, and I'll look at something and I'll get my own take from it. That's so specific
Yeah.
to me, which is, that's why, you know, opinions are so fucking big on the internet. This is trash. This
Right.
movie's great. This isn't. None of
And then
that's true.
everyone's like arguing on their opinions when it's like so
They're totally
subjective.
made
Like,
up. They're totally made up.
yeah, but like it's so like each person just has their own subjective opinion.
Yeah.
Like there's no point in arguing. Like just accept the fact that people have different opinions. Like I don't get it why.
That's so hard for people to do. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I guess because it's fun to argue. I don't know why. Humans love arguing.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Like, I don't think it's fun, but.
Or people kind of just expect other people to see things the same way as they do. Like they get annoyed if you don't see it the same way for some reason. Like,
yeah, it feels really good. I was thinking about tribalism, which is like, you know what that is?
Yeah, like your sense of tribe and
yeah, it's like the feeling of unitness, of being with someone,
being part of a
team,
group. Like, yeah,
being part of a group.
Yeah,
feels so fucking good. Like, it's not like that's just. I think that really hints back to our instinctive nature of forging societies, everything, because we're meant to be together. We humans are meant to live together. We are social creatures, and I think that's why people love arguing on the internet, because everyone just wants people to agree with them.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, because a team, like if you're part of a team, the team has to work together. Like they have to agree with each other on what they're doing. But if you're like so I guess you expect you're expecting people to be on the same team as you with that tribal instinct.
Yeah.
So you want everybody to agree with you because we're expecting to be on the same team, but I guess. And then it's like our brains are like getting confused. Like
we argue with each other like you're going to change someone's mind. Like imagine, like I see it all the time. People comment, this movie's trash. And then someone will be like, no, it's not. And then someone will be like, yeah, it is. Like,
and then are you like, yeah, you're so
really
dumb
think
for
you're going to
thinking
change their mind? You think they're going to change their mind? Like they haven't made up. You think your comment's going to change the way they think about this movie?
Right.
But then again, social pressure does change the way people think. Like when a song is really popular, some people don't like a song because it's popular, which is so crazy that like, oh, people like that. I don't really like it because people like it. That's why I don't like it.
And people will be like afraid to say they like a song that nobody likes.
Yeah. Or they're afraid to say they like a song that everybody likes because it's becoming so popular not to like popular things.
And then it becomes popular to not like it. So then you're afraid to like it because of what people will think.
Right? Like what a fucking thing.
It's like our minds are getting all confused. Like our instincts like are telling us to behave a certain way, but like this world is just not made for that anymore. Like this world is just completely different now, and like it just confuses us. Like that's
why I'm worried about like the future, because it seems that the further we go along, the more intelligent we get, the more conscious we get, the more we can't agree. Like the more like, okay, say you're a fan of, let's just say you're a fan of this, like an artist. Okay, you got tribalism, you like their songs, but now in that subcategory that you're in already, there's another subcategory of, okay, I like this artist, but I don't like this one song. But then other people that are like love that one song, and now you're together, but you're separated on the opinions of liking, one of the songs. You know what I mean? How Like how fucking
Yeah.
divided that gets. Oh, you're not a
Right.
real fan of him. You don't like this
Right.
song. Who's a
And then
real
people
like?
and then people like start identifying like as like the group who likes this song.
Yeah,
Like they make it into a group. They make it into like a tribe.
tribe
It's
within a
kind of, yeah.
tribe. It's so crazy.
But like I don't get, why do you have to make tribes? Like just like a song. Like why do we have to make it complicated?
I feel like the
I don't know.
ego is playing a way too big of a role nowadays.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so fucking, it's so expansive, but I feel like it definitely does have to do also with the internet and the fact that like everyone thinks their life is a fucking movie. And sure, it could be, it could make you, that could be pleasing to you. Like you want to post your food, you want to make sure everyone's watching what you're doing. And then you do feel this like God complex almost, you know what I mean? Like I bet Kim Kardashian feels like a fucking god. She's got the whole world watching her do everything she's ever done. That's got to have an impact on your fucking ego. You know what I mean? Like
Probably.
it's hard to escape. It's hard to escape your ego and kill it almost in a sense because it's who you identify with.
Right. You got to have ego death.
Yeah, I agree. But you can never. I don't think you could never have like full ego death because I don't think you can know yourself at like fully. I love how Alan Watts always says like a knife can't cut itself, a fire can't burn itself.
Right.
You'll never know yourself because that's just not how it works. But it's getting crazy with the tribalism and then the division among everyone, even that's together. Right. So crazy, man.
So it's like, is consciousness the way out of that?
Like right. Is it the step back, the awareness of the awareness
of that situation? Like you become aware that all these things are messed up or in these situations. And then you could kind of like reevaluate and decide how to move forward.
Sometimes I use consciousness. I don't know if this is a bad thing. Maybe it could be. I don't know. I use consciousness and like, okay, so let's say I'm sad. I will observe that I'll step back and observe my sadness. And I'm like, all right now I'm a human that's being sad because this happened to this and that, that's what a lot of humans do. But then I realized I could use my consciousness just to change that kind of. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
like that you can, once you're aware of yourself, you're like, what?
Right.
Fuck?
Right. Yeah. And you almost could detach from it and then be like, why am I acting this way? Or like I can do it a lot when I'm like getting angry. Like if I find myself getting angry, like I feel that blood boiling, I'm like about to rage. I could kind of step back from that anger and be like I'm getting angry, right?
And then why am I angry?
Right. Or I can, but even just that stepping back, that like becoming conscious just kind of like takes you out of the anger for a second.
Yeah.
It's like you detach from that feeling, that feeling, and you're just,
Some people will say if that's like unhealthy. People say detachment's unhealthy. Who the fuck knows? Honestly, I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't think anyone knows anything.
Yeah.
And it's driving me crazy sometimes, but like, how do you know if you're right? You don't know. You're taking a logical guess at if detachment's unhealthy or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, who's really? I always think like therapists and psychologists and stuff. Are they right?
Yeah.
Or are they just like taking a stance and judging a certain way of thinking or living and saying that's the right thing? You know? Like if I talk to a therapist and they're like, oh, you're overthinking about this stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, how about this? You are evaluating me thinking, and now you are labeling my thinking as overthinking. But you're the therapist that has all these, these, what's it called? All these degrees and everything. So you're right. You must be right. I must be the issue. You know?
Yeah.
Like
what you're saying.
like who's really right?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It is, because there's no
really
real
is,
answer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm juggling with.
So there's no real answer that people know that.
Yeah.
Like when you say there's no real answer, you mean an answer that people know. Because I think there is an answer to everything. Like out there somewhere, out there in the universe somewhere, there's an answer. We are just not aware of it. Us, the little humans, like on this little planet, we're not aware of those answers, but they do exist.
Like what?
Like there is something that happens after death.
Okay, yeah,
there is an answer. We just don't know about it.
Mm.
You get what I'm saying?
Do you think we would ever be able to comprehend it?
Maybe not.
But what?
But it's still, it still exists though. Like the answer, the answer is still there. Even though we might not be conscious of it, or we might not even be able to comprehend it. Like there is a reality. There is an answer.
What do you think about, you know, it's been tripping me out? Fucking dimensions. Like, okay, we live in the third dimension. This is what I've been thinking about. There could be aliens just living in, or whatever, other life forms living in different dimensions than us. And we just cannot detect them because we're in the third dimension. I don't know. I get like,
it's kind of trippy to think about.
I don't understand dimensions. I don't get it. It fucks with my mind a lot. Like I don't get it.
Yeah.
But I am aware, I think that they exist. But like what if the aliens that we're expecting to show up will never show up because they've already been here? They've been here the whole time. They're here right now, just on a different dimensional plane.
Observing us from the fourth dimension.
Yes, like or the seventh or whatever.
Yes, like someone in a higher dimension would see our dimension as like flat,
right?
As like a paper.
Because we can observe second dimension on a piece of paper. Oh God!
So straight up, like aliens could be watching us right now, like just looking at it. Oh, look at those two little humans, like.
And we wouldn't be aware of it.
Yeah, we would have no idea.
That's what I think. Because I was going to ask you, what is something that we can't? What does uncomprehension mean? What can't we comprehend? And I think that would be it. Something that we, like another dimension, we simply can't escape the third dimension, right?
Right.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, we're kind of like stuck in three dimensions because we're three-dimensional creatures.
Right.
So we're just like, yeah, we cannot comprehend really what a fourth dimension would look like.
And then, God, does the dimensions go into the, like, does it have to do with the universe? Like, do dimensions exist if the universe doesn't exist?
What do you mean? Dimensions is like a property of like a space. Like you can have something that's one-dimensional, which it would just be a line. That's one dimension. And then two-dimensional would be like a plane, like a flat plane. And then something that's three-dimensional would be a space, like the space that we live in now. It's like a space. And then a fourth dimension would be something we can't even comprehend. Like it adds a whole new direction that like is just not something we could even understand.
Oh man.
So, yeah. So
that's fucking trippy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fun to think about dimensions.
Ooh, that is fucking trippy.
Yeah.
So dimensions only exist because existence exists.
Yeah, the space. Yeah. It's like the space that we're in. Dimensions is like a property of the space. That's what I think about it. But yeah, I don't know if
that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So like if there was no universe, then there would be no dimensions.
Wow. It's totally possible
too.
There are other dimensions where some entities are living or something like that.
Yeah, but it almost like seems so random though, that like our universe has three dimensions. Like it's just so arbitrary. Like, why did our universe have to have three? Like, why couldn't we have been seven-dimensional creatures? Like, why do we live in seven dimensions? Like, who decided that?
Well,
Like it could have been, like it literally could have been 7 dimensions, and we wouldn't think twice about it. We'd be like, oh, we're 7-dimensional creatures, and everything's normal.
I just don't know how we get. I don't think we get like. It's actually scientifically correct, I guess, that we really are just organisms that gain consciousness at a certain age, right? Like we don't.
What do you mean? You're saying like as a baby?
Like we didn't get this. Like we didn't, not that we know of that, like we didn't decide to get our consciousness or soul into this world. Like our organism was birthed with the brain and then we grew the ability to have consciousness.
Right.
And we always think that, there was possibly a before this or a after, but it's totally possible that we're just an organism that has this ability. And then once you die, the ability dies with you. And that's just it.
Yep. That's the way I kind of think about it.
It makes sense that way.
It does.
It makes sense that way if you totally deny any of the magic of the natural world. You know what I mean? Like if you want to look at it super concretely, scientifically, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But as you know, this is not just like a concrete experience, I feel like.
Yeah.
This experience
consciousness itself is like, consciousness feels different. It like, there's also even the like, if you look at the world completely scientifically, completely like physically, like everything's just physical, like particles moving around, chemicals. Like where does consciousness come into that picture? Like,
right.
Like consciousness does not even make sense in that framework.
It does.
Like how do you have a bunch of chemicals moving around and creates a brain, right? And all these signals moving around, creating your brain and your thoughts. But like, at what point does that create this, like this experience of consciousness? Like
you can't even measure
doesn't even,
like it just doesn't make sense.
It's not even like a tangible thing.
And we're the only creatures with this that we know of.
It's so weird.
I always thought like, because I've seen this thing on TikTok where like owners of pets are getting buttons and the cats and the dogs are pressing buttons like that say words. So they're kind of learning how to speak, so to say. And like, it gets me thinking, so like how different everything would be if every animal was conscious. Like imagine every cow we're killing is like talking to us, being like, please don't kill me. Like it would change everything. My cat would come in here and be like, yo, I'm fucking hungry, or like, yo, I want to go outside, or anything. It would change everything. And the fact that we're the only animals that are able to do this so far that we know of.
Well, what if animals are conscious, but they just can't communicate with us?
Well, why would that be so? I believe they are conscious. They definitely. It's tough.
Depends what you mean by conscious. It depends what you're referring to exactly.
I guess we'll never be able to know if they have the ability of thought.
Right.
Not right now, at least.
Like the question is like, are animals experiencing like a reality? If that makes sense. Like a rock doesn't experience anything. It's a rock, right? Yeah. And like even a tree, like it doesn't appear like a tree has like a conscious experience. Like it just grows and it kind of just does its thing.
Just is.
Yeah, but whereas the animals do kind of seem like they have like thoughts and feelings almost. Like they experience things. They experience pain and pleasure and all these things that we experience. But it's kind of interesting to think about like, where did that start? Like at what point did a creature, because you can go all the way down to like worms. Like, does a worm have feelings? Does a worm have thoughts? An insect, like a spider, does a spider have feelings? Can a spider feel anything? Like if I step on a bug, does that feel pain? Does he feel pain? So like at what point on the scale did animals start developing like ability to like have feelings and like
I definitely
experience
think,
things.
I don't know anything for sure. I think they definitely feel pain, I feel like, but do they feel non-physical feelings? If that makes sense. Like, can you hurt a bug's feelings? Like, it's funny, we call them feelings, but they're really the idea of, this is hard to explain.
Yeah.
Like, they're the idea of, how do you even explain that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, how do you explain feelings? Like, if I disrespected you, you'd feel disrespected, but it's only your thoughts that feel disrespected. Your being isn't disrespect. Like, it doesn't, you know? That makes sense?
Yeah, like it's a thought. It's really just a thought in your head.
It's
you feel like disrespected. It's a feeling. It's like it's really all in your head, really. That's the way I think about it. Like,
I feel like
these feelings, all these thoughts. Yeah.
We have like a mental being. That's why like they call it like a mental well-being. Like, okay, how you doing? And say if you broke your arm, like, how you doing? Well, I'm in a lot of pain. How are you doing mentally? How's your other body almost? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Are you sad? Are you hurt? Like mentally? Are you, whatever? It's so weird that the mind has created its own body in your mind almost. Or not body,
right.
but
it's like creating
essence. I don't know.
It's creating like a perception of itself. Like it's creating like a feeling of like, yeah, like like you are this person, right? Like your brain, like you feel that, right? And yeah, you could feel like as if you're disrespected. Like you feel like this person, like I was disrespected, right? Like you could feel that emotion is like, yeah, it's so weird.
Like, and that gets me thinking, like we label like awkwardness. Like you could feel awkwardness, but awkwardness technically doesn't exist in the physical world.
No, yeah, exactly.
It's just completely our perspectives being like
completely our
weird.
Yeah, it's our like, yeah, it's really our brains just tripping out.
Yeah, like overthinking it almost. Right now, I am a body, like an organism that is sitting in this chair talking to another organism, right?
Through a computer.
Technically nothing's really going on. But mentally, everything's going on between us right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like,
maybe that's why animals don't do it, because speaking doesn't make sense really to them in a way. If you think about it, they just use noises, but that's what language is. Everything I'm saying right now is just a noise out of my mouth. And it's almost like I'm singing it because you understand what it means.
And also, like, you don't even tell your mouth what to say. Your mouth just says what you're thinking about. Like it just does it almost. Like, you're just like saying these sounds, and like my brain just somehow understands that because like we just somehow understand these things. It's so wild.
When you're talking, you're singing in a way. If you think you're tuning your voice to make these certain patterns, as you do it, which is like, and then we identify these patterns with objects and even fucking non-mental objects.
With thoughts. It's like each word like is connected to a concept in your head. So like if I say a word, like all of a sudden a concept pops into your head. Like water bottle. That's how you kind of like,
you know what a water bottle
I think of a water bottle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is a water bottle. But
I just thought of that.
If we never had a word for this, you'd be like,
oh. And then we would have to make a word for it. We would say, this is a I don't know.
Man,
you'd make up a random word.
When I think of that, like at some point humans didn't have language. And then they started to realize that they can make different noises. So they'd be like, oh,
right.
And then they'd be like, okay, we can make these noises. Okay. This stick, they can't use words to do this, but they're gonna be like,
so they would just hold it up.
Pick up a stick and be like, and they'd be like, everyone would be like, okay. They wouldn't even say okay. It's so hard to do without a fundamental language. Oh my
So it's so
God.
hard to explain it because we have to explain it.
Yeah.
But they would understand. Like you hold up the stick, and like they would all point to it, and they'd be like, "This, like, oh." And I would be like, "Oh, it's a oh."
And then when you're talking, they'd be like,
oh. Then they would think of the stick when you
would
say like they would know
that's
what
why
you're saying.
we are incredible beings. Think
We
of how
really
complex that is. Like languages,
Yeah.
and we take it for granted. It's so simple. We're like, oh, everyone knows how to talk. This is easy. This is very
Yeah,
easy. You know
nobody
every word I'm
thinks twice
saying.
about it. Nobody thinks twice.
Ooh, we like that. That's why no animals are doing it. It's a very, very complex thing to do mentally.
Right. Like you definitely need a really intelligent creatures to be able to do that.
Yeah. And do you believe in the stoned ape theory that we ate mushrooms and that's how we got consciousness?
And that's what got us consciousness? I don't know. I think
deer and animals are definitely eating mushrooms in the wild. They're not doing this.
Yeah.
That's
there are like
somewhere,
there are animals who use like psychoactive like leaves. They like get high randomly. Like it happens.
But they're not getting consciousness like this that we know of.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's possible that like psychedelics somehow affected like our brains as we started getting smarter in some way. I really wonder what it actually did.
Like what causes the okay, let's figure this out. Like let's make a language.
See, I don't know if they consciously decided to make a language. Like they didn't think, guys, let's make a language. Right. Like it kind of just developed like over time, like here and there things started happening, and eventually this thing just kind of developed over time. Like language it just worked. It helped them organize better. They were able to like hunt more easily. So then language just kind of stuck. Like it just kind of developed that way.
I think it's honestly the most impactful invention of human history.
Yeah.
The invention of language, the ability to basically explain consciousness, to share consciousness.
It's the ability to spread consciousness, basically.
Yeah, it is. Man, it's so fucking crazy.
Wow.
And to think they didn't have it once, like when they interacted with each other, with like, that's what gets me kind of like, it's crazy that, okay, we have 4,000 languages on this planet. But think about when we had foraging societies, they probably all had their own. Each tribe had their own language, most likely. I could be wrong, but whatever. Sounds about
probably
right.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you're imagine you and your friends were living together all their life. You would have your own language with each other.
Yeah.
And imagine interacting with other groups with other languages. You'd be like, whoa, they're saying all those things the same. They mean the same thing we're saying, but they're saying it different
words.
And then how, like, to learn that language, it's crazy. We could just learn languages.
Yeah.
And it changes everything once you learn the language. It's also got me thinking, like, the way we speak, the language we speak changes how you, it's so hard to explain.
Changes how you think about things too.
Yes. And the way it's delivered and everything changes the way, like, it's so crazy. Because if I speak,
maybe
like,
we do kind of think in terms of language.
Yeah.
Like we do think in words almost. So maybe like language almost helps our consciousness think. Because now we can like label thoughts. We can like label thoughts in terms of these words.
That's that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we can like kind of piece everything together in our minds as like a bunch of words now. Because like now like we have like labels for everything. It kind of like helps us think about it.
Fucks with us too, though.
It does.
It's very faulty.
Really. Yeah, language could be deceptive.
Yeah, very. But man, it's so crazy because you are different. You're almost different people when you speak different languages. Like I'm English. Obviously, we speak English. Do you speak any other language?
No.
So, like, if I learned Spanish and I was speaking Spanish to someone that speaks Spanish, they'd immediately know, first of all, that I don't speak Spanish. Immediately. Yeah. Like, it's not my native language. You could tell immediately when someone's doesn't speak English. Like, you could tell when someone's native language is not English. And it changes, it affects the way they think of you when you speak a different language that's not your own. You know, like it changes the way you go at like talking to them.
Well, do you speak any other? Do you speak
No,
Spanish or no?
I am very subpar in Spanish, but I used to be pretty good at it. But that's only from high school, like learning Spanish, but nowhere near good at it. But
like you've tried to speak it before to people.
no, I get awkward because I feel like it's, yeah, you know, like it feels, I know it's not though, but it almost like feels ignorant or not racist, but like, like speaking a language to someone that, you know what I mean? Like when I speak Spanish to Spanish people, I feel ignorant almost because I don't know. Do you get that? I know other people feel this way too, because it's like, I want to speak to them. I want to be able to translate, not translate in that way, but like, I just want to be able to tell you how I feel and I want to be friends with you. That's why I wish there's one world language. I believe in a one world language, honestly. I know it's anti-cultural, but I should be able to speak to, not should, exactly. But it would be so beneficial for everybody to be on the same exact page language wise. So beneficial because say let's someone in China is experiencing stuff we should be aware of, but if they can't translate it the way that I can understand it, it's not gonna be as useful. Like we literally can't communicate with people who don't speak the same language as us. It feels like an alien interaction. Like you cannot really communicate with them. It's so like we just can't communicate with like half the planet. Dude, and think of this. It's just like it was in foraging time. You resort to physical gestures, hand gestures, right? Like when I'm speaking to someone that doesn't understand the language, like you start using your hands, pointing. You gotta point to things. You have to point to everything. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish there was a world language. I agree, dude. And it doesn't have to be anyone that's created now. Like if we just if we were all just like, all right, guys, let's just really start working on learning this language. And then someday it's going to become native to everyone. Like we speak English natively, but if that world language became fucking natively known to everybody as their first language, I think it insanely increase the compatibility of us. We'd be able to communicate way better. I think we'd understand that we're all the same too. I think we'd really because when people are like, oh, you're American, you're this, people think we're so different. We're not. We're not different. We're literally the same. We just got born somewhere else and we learned different languages. It also blows my mind that sign language is not like, we should all be fluent in sign language. I really do believe that. Do you know how effective it is that I don't need to speak, but I can just, you know what I mean? Like let's either say a really loud place or a place where we need to be really quiet, or let's say you're far away from me. It's so damn effective. It makes so much sense. It would be kind of cool to be able to do that. People don't realize how useful it is. Yeah. So why don't we make sign language the world language? I agree. Yeah, I agree. Everybody should learn sign language. Everybody, the whole world. Thing is, there's fucking a million versions of sign language as well. Oh, really? Yeah. Did you know that there's American Sign Language, Spanish Sign Language, German Sign? There's all different types of sign language. But let's say we make a new sign language completely that's universal. Call it Universal Sign Language. And then obviously we should have. It is fun to like talk though too, like verbally, but man, it's fucking crazy. Anyway, I want to talk about, you still good to keep going? Sure. All right, cool. Yeah. Senses. We often take for granted the five senses, and it changes the way everything, the way we live, the way we think, the way everything. Imagine if you couldn't see, or if you couldn't hear, or if you couldn't, I don't know if talk that's not a language or a sense. It's not sense. I know some people are hearing, but that's because they can't hear or whatever. But like, Imagine if all you ever saw was, if you're blind, you don't know if you're naturally blind at birth. You literally don't know what this looks like. And everyone's talking about it. Everyone's describing it. And to you, it's all the same.
Yeah.
But our senses trick us sometimes. We wouldn't be able to tell that race existed if we couldn't see. Or we could, due to the natural structure of our bodies, we'd be like, oh, instead of saying, oh, you're a white person or, oh, you're a black person, we could be like feeling them and be like, oh, you're a long-nosed person. You know what I mean? Like it would be insanely different. And that's what's funny. Right. That's what's ridiculous to me about racism, is that it's literally only because we could see. It's only because we have the ability to see color, I guess. It's not even really color.
Yeah.
That's the reason racism exists.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. And then,
yeah, well, sight is like our main sense. If you think about it. Mm-hmm. Like
it is.
And every time like you see another person's face, like you just, yeah, like you just like look at all their features and like you just recognize things. Yeah, sight is really sight, I think, is like the main sense that we use.
Totally. Think of everything. Everything. I mean, everything. Quite literally everything right now. Like, how would you even use, I mean, they definitely have it, obviously, but like, how would you even use a computer if you couldn't see the screen? Or how would you use I was thinking about that. If I was blind, would I be able to even have a phone to make TikToks and like?
No.
You wouldn't be able to touch, like, you know, like.
Yeah, you wouldn't know where to press. You wouldn't
know you're recording, posting, typing, anything. Sight is really like the dominant sense we have.
Yeah. It's also really fun to imagine, like, if you couldn't see, right? Like you were blind. Someone who's blind, they don't even understand what it's like to see.
Right.
They don't even have a concept of colors or have a concept of what it even means.
The universe, the earth.
Right. Like they experience everything just through sound, basically. Sound and touch. Like that's their universe. That's their reality, is just sound and touch.
Like you said, it creates your reality.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Like imagine if you didn't know what space looked like outer space. If you didn't know what it looked like, or the earth. Okay, I don't even know. Okay, actually, no, I get it. Like if I was like, all right, the earth is round, and then you hand a blind person a round ball.
Right.
Then they can get an idea, okay, this is what a ball feels like in our earth. Whatever I'm standing on is just a big version of this. But then to explain that it's floating.
Then they would understand that. Yeah, they would probably be really confused. They would be like, wait, so then what's beyond the ball? Like, what is it?
Right.
What's around the ball? Like, they would be so confused, and you would have to try to explain to them, oh, like there's these little like dots around, like, but I don't even know if they would understand that because they never saw before. They don't even know what it looks like. So maybe they could imagine like feeling a dot, like, because Braille, it's like this language to feel dots. So they could probably imagine that in a way. But yeah, they would have no idea what it even means to see. Which is like so crazy to think about. And then there's like okay, so then there's this like a fun thought experiment that like, what if you are missing a sense? Like really, every human has 6 senses, but you like there's a sixth sense that everybody has, but you don't have that sense. But you don't even realize that you don't have that sense because you never experience anything like that. Like you don't even know that the sense even exists. So like, because like people who are blind from birth, when they're really young, like they didn't even realize that people could see. At first, they did not even realize that seeing is a thing. Like they thought, oh, everyone just hears and everyone just feels. Like they don't even realize that people could see, which is so crazy to think about.
Because like, oh, you're blind. And they're like, what does that mean? Like what?
Right. Yeah, they don't even realize something's wrong with them. They think they're normal at first. Oh. Then you have to kind of explain to them that like, yeah, everybody else has this other sense called seeing, and like you don't have that. And they would be like, so like, what? That's so weird. Like, what? People could, like, they wouldn't even understand what that means. Which is so crazy.
It is. What if the sixth sense is like consciousness? You know what I mean? Like the awareness. Man, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a sense though. Like I feel like the senses combine together to create consciousness. Like the senses are like something separate. Like the senses like collect information from the world. Like you like look around the world, you see things, you experience things, and then that all combines together into your consciousness, and then your consciousness like then becomes aware of like all those senses and all those ideas and all those things about the world.
Right, because when you really evaluate something, like, okay, this water bottle, I could feel it.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like. I know what it smells like. I know what it looks like.
Right.
And now I have kind of like a complete understanding of this object.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Hearings. Yeah, I mean, if you couldn't hear, that'd be such a different life, man. It's so weird to have all 5 of these senses, because there are so many people that don't have them all.
Yeah. That have none of them, like actually.
Oh no, I don't know.
I can't even imagine.
I don't know, but I'm saying like just
how would that even work? Like if somebody had no senses, like how would their consciousness? Like what would they even think? They would have no thoughts.
I always thought about that. If you can't see and hear, I mean, what?
It's just touch. Everything's touch. It's just feeling. Like you could just feel the world.
Yeah, but like you wouldn't
with your hands
be able to learn anything like that we teach with language or anything. Yeah. I can't hear or see. I'm literally just touching things and smelling things.
Right. That's your whole world. It's just a bunch of touch and smell.
No one could even explain to you Braille or anything because you can't hear it or see it.
You have no way of learning. You have no way of learning how to read Braille even because
no one
could tell you.
Okay, let's say you feel an A, but you can't hear that it's an A and you can't see that it's an A. So you'll never know that it's an A.
Yeah, you'll never even know what language is. You'll never even know that language exists.
I don't know if people are naturally born like that. I know supposedly not Whoopi Goldberg. Helen Keller became blind or whatever at a certain age or something like that, or she lost her hearing or something like that. Because she's both, but she wasn't born like that, I think. I don't know if anyone's born like that, but I bet there are some cases. I mean, there's 8 billion of us. I'm sure there's one. Yeah. Man, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like we have all these senses, but we don't like really think about it. Like,
oh, dude, just like you were saying with life and death.
Yeah.
And then same thing with these senses. Like we have them, but we don't, even with language, we have it and we don't understand. Why is it so hard to appreciate and understand something?
Yeah.
It's so easy to just go on and worry about shit that's so stupid and not even realize the spectacularness of these insane abilities that we have.
Exactly. Like we don't appreciate the things we have, like because we have them, so we don't think twice about it. But like once you remove them,
oh my god,
like death, like once you remove it, then you start to appreciate it. Like the second you don't have it, like if you remove the senses, now you can start to see and appreciate like how important the senses are, like how important language is and how important like life is and everything. Like it's almost like we could only see its importance when it's removed.
Right.
Which is so weird. Yeah.
It is fucking nuts, man.
It's nuts.
There's so many ways to like evaluate consciousness too. Like when I'm trying to make this video and I'm trying to describe how I'm attempting to expand consciousness of other humans. And like I want to break down a book and I'm gonna be like, listen, let's evaluate this completely. Okay. There's so many ways you can look at this, but first you can look at it like, okay, I'm looking at this book and the materials it's made from, and think about how all the materials had to go from where they were naturally to the factory or whatever, get put together, get made, all of that. So all of that, you have to be, you're aware of all of that happened to get this to your spot. And then on top of that, let's go into, how books, what essentially books are. They're people's thoughts put into a paper, but then you got to understand their language to interpret what they're actually thinking. And the point of the book is that they can't be with you physically, but they're mentally with you because they're writing their thoughts down on a book or on paper. Man, it's just so crazy. And consciousness, I believe, is the awareness of all that almost. And the more you are aware of all that, I don't even know if it's better, but I feel like it is. I don't know. I feel like awareness is a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like it's powerful.
It is. Because like we were saying, like, go ahead.
It gives you like perspective, right? Like, it gives you power. Like, it's like now you're aware of the situation. Now you could like,
you could assess it in a different way. It's weird that you could choose perspectives though. I always think that's so interesting. I can go to work and be like, this is going to be a great day. I could be lying to myself, but I could really convince myself that I think it's going to be a great day. And my perspective is that it's great. Like I have a great perspective, they say. Or you can go in with a terrible perspective and be like, this is going to be terrible. I hate this shit. And it's your choice, kind of. Like sometimes though, I don't know. Sometimes I just think things are the way they are. And I'm like, I'm going to call it what I want to call it. But you kind of have the choice in a way, which is like autonomy. I feel like that's the freedom to choose the way you want to think almost.
Yeah, but it would be kind of weird if like your life sucked, but then you had the perspective that everything was great. Like you're just walking around smiling all day, but then like.
Then it's great to you though. If you're truly happy though, then
what
does it matter?
You're right. Yeah, it completely doesn't matter.
It's just so weird that life is just an open question. Like you can make it whatever you want it to be. You can believe in whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be right. But if you believe it enough, that's you. That's what you do. And
it's kind of like if you believe it, it becomes real.
Yeah. That's so true. That's why I think like in a sense we created religion. And we almost created it to be real because we convinced ourselves that there are gods up there watching over us.
Yeah.
And really, that's not, I'm not saying it's not right, but it's not necessarily true. But it could be. But we believe it so hard that it's actually, more like half the population believes in religion. That's how powerful that is.
It became so real in the way that it affected people. And like, changed the way people live and everything. So it almost doesn't even matter if it's actually real,
right? Because
or not. It's like, it affects the way people live and it affects the way people think and everything.
It became real.
In
a sense, like it had real.
In a sense,
power.
It became real. Yeah.
Like when you think about not necessarily medieval times, but when church was the main power in societies, these societies revolved around religion, something that is created by our minds.
Yeah.
Well, that's what money is actually, now that I think about it.
Everything is.
We created something that doesn't actually exist.
Same thing with governments, really.
Yeah. I don't know how much longer we think those are going to be useful.
Right.
Like, I actually think at some point in the future, I don't think governments are going to exist.
Yeah.
Because why are there countries? I think about that all the time. Like, we're all just these people. Yes, countries started because there were tribes and everything like everywhere, and then they started forming together.
Only once they start claiming land, really.
Yeah.
You need to like make countries.
I've been noticing though that like, Russia's doing it right now, but like, it seems that we're stuck in our boundaries now. Like America, they're never going to extend their boundaries because then they're technically invading other countries unless we go to war. And then, like, it's almost like you can't create a new country.
Because all the land is claimed. All the land is claimed.
All the land is claimed.
It is.
When people are like, oh, go somewhere else, there is nowhere else to go.
There is.
Every country is living the way we're living right now, essentially. I know some places have different forms of government and everything, but what runs the world? Money. That's what it is. And you can't get away from that because there's nowhere to go.
But like if we just got rid of countries, then the world would be free basically. Like anyone could just go anywhere. Like it would kind of be more like simpler.
Right. And we would just have to, I guess that's what patriarchy is, right? Like there's no governments, there's no rules. Oh no,
That's
anarchy.
patriarchy.
Sorry.
That's
That's
anarchy.
anarchy.
Yeah.
Sorry. Patriarchy is the
Yeah.
opposite, right? Is that what I don't even
Patriarchy
know
is
what
like
patriarchy is.
patriarchy is like where the males like run the society.
Oh. Oh.
Like patriarch is like the father, like a father.
Oh.
And like a matriarch is the other version where like the mothers control the society.
Oh, wow.
That's what it is.
I didn't know that. The patriarchy is male and matriarchy is female.
Patriarchy, but it's female, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So our society is a patriarchy
Basically,
for the most part, yeah. Like
I mean, if you look at the
for everything from since like the beginning of
and
civilization.
really like yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think that's
weird.
also one of the weird things about civilization is like at a certain point, like hunter-gatherer societies were all like egalitarian and everything. Everyone was equal. And then at a certain point, they decided that like women should be owned.
Yeah.
Or like the males control everything. Like women are like became like objects and stuff. And like then they started collecting slaves. Like at a certain point, like things changed and like we just did things differently.
The book I'm reading is trying to pinpoint exactly when that change happens. Like when do we go from, all right, you know what? I own this land and you work for me. And when does hierarchies start?
Right.
But the book makes a great point. It's talking about how it doesn't make sense to think that every foraging society was the same way. They weren't all equal and you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make sense. There's definitely, you're telling me in the 95% of the time we've experienced on this planet that they all live the same exact way all across the globe? No way. You know, humans try things out. We test certain things.
There's variation.
So there was foraging societies that tried hierarchies and all these different types of things. I know of one that had seasonal hierarchies. So like at certain times of the season, they'd go into hierarchies because it benefited them during the season. And then when the season was over, they'd go back to everyone being equal, which is so interesting. They would try these things out. Almost like a holiday. You know how I think that's where holidays originated, because when holidays come around, everything's different. You know, like on a holiday, rules are just different. And society's like, you know what? Fuck this. We're not doing what we're doing. We're going to take a break.
Yeah.
So they really were like basically holidays of like, you know, like how cool is that? So where did we get stuck? Where did we stop?
Yeah. Where did everything go wrong?
Right.
Yeah.
And it has to probably do with the idea of property.
Yeah.
Which stems from agriculture.
Yeah.
Mostly. Because agriculture creates surplus.
It's like it starts with permanent settlements also.
Yeah. Staying in one place.
Once you stop wandering, you settle down, then you start building, you start expanding. You have to plant lots of fields and you start building like houses. And that's when you start collecting like wealth and materials and like, it really changes the way humans operate at that point.
And you say, I own this land and I'm not moving unless you move me.
Yeah.
And that, man.
And they had to make like cities. They had to make like settlements, like permanent settlements, like, and then they had to have a ruler to like keep control of everything. And then that ruler would like try to gain power and like, oh, this ruler would be more powerful if he had some slaves. So they'll go like raid the village next to them and collect some slaves.
Yeah.
And then those were the settlements that would then expand further because they had so much more power because they had all this slave labor now. So it's almost like the ones that were more greedy, like the ones that had these like negative qualities that were like, they were more greedy. They were more like collect more slaves and more. Those were the ones that spread faster. Those were the ones that took over.
The ones that did the worst, like progressed the most.
Yeah.
Which is so fucked up.
It is.
But it makes sense, you know?
Right.
When does that happen though? why does that, Mark, the bigger question is, why does that happen? Like, when do we do the mental switch of, all right, you know what? You're right. I'm better than you. You are going to work for me. Like, I have power over you. In a lot of foraging societies, they would have chiefs and people in charge, but the important thing is they didn't have to actually listen to their orders. They could, or they could just be like, I'm not doing that. And there couldn't be anything, they couldn't do anything against them because that's just not how it worked.
Yeah.
So they like respected the chief, but they didn't necessarily, his rule, it wasn't everything like that. He didn't have the final say on how everything worked. He wasn't ordering people, and then if they didn't follow the orders, he would kill them. It's not how it wored. They
he's not a leader by force, right? It's not by force. It's like by respect. Exactly. Like,
yeah.
We
don't have that anymore.
That's obviously a better system. Like, you want the leader who everybody respects, not the leader who tries to force things on people. Like, why would you want that?
Sure. That's why I just don't understand politics in the modern era.
Yeah, me neither.
And then we numb it down to two people at the end of the race.
Like two of the worst people you could imagine.
And then we have to choose between one of them. Why don't we just hold off until we get a better choice?
Right. Like, what? Like,
crazy. Tell me how we don't, half the population, it's always in America especially, half the population usually doesn't respect the president. Right. And that's the person running the country. Technically the most important job, they say. And half the people don't even respect the person doing it. That can't be. That cannot be. We've failed democracy.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't.
Like, I don't even know if democracy is the right word to describe it anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I
like, think are we really deciding, like, collectively what we want? No. Like, isn't that the point of democracy, that like everybody kind of votes on what they want? So like everybody has a say, kind of.
Right.
Like, it's not really like that at all.
I also think, I know differential, like, people, you need different people, I guess, in society to make it work. But I always thought, why don't the people that live one way and agree to live one way just go off and live together? Why not just live in an area where we all agree on what we think life is about?
Exactly.
Like, what if imagine Democrats and Republicans just split up and just, Democrats on the right side and Republicans on the left side of the country. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know why we attempt to live in a world where we just are constantly arguing with each other on philosophies and ideas and, all these things, these political stances. Let's just fight. Like, why not just separate and live the way we want to live? Exactly.
It's so obvious. Like, why don't we just get together with the people that agree with us? Like, why are we forced to work with? Why are we forced to work with the people? Like, why are we forced to work with people who disagree? Like, it's almost like we're forced to work together. We're forced to cooperate.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like cooperation because it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, like, we should honestly just do our own thing. It seems so obvious.
It does. And then you're like,
yeah, because it's like we're all forced to be in part of the same country. Like, we're America, right? So like, we have to all be the same. Like, we have to work under the same. See, that's like the thing that sucks about countries. Like, you're a part of a country, so you have to like everybody has to kind of agree on what that country does. But like, if there were no countries, then people would just get together with the people they want to get together with and just do their own thing. Like, everyone would just do what they want to do. Like, right. I don't know why we make it so complicated.
It sounds so simple because it is.
It is. It really is.
Oh my God. But this is also the issue. Like, people will tell me if I don't like the country, everyone says, if you don't like the country, move. Okay. Here's the issue. This country is destroying the planet that the other countries are living on. So we need to, in a way, we can avoid these issues all we want. I could go leave the country. Okay, great for me. What happens to the other, like, what happens to the planet if we just keep leaving?
Right.
The pollution rates of this country are like, I don't even know the statistics, but they're like, we are like 40% or something like that, 40 or 70 or something. We are accountable for 70% or 40% of the pollution. Meanwhile, we only have like I don't even know the percent of the population of humanity, but we have a very little percent of population of humanity, but we're producing the most pollution basically.
Yeah.
Like that needs to go checked. That
Right.
can't go unchecked.
True. It's like we got to fix things. Like we have to take responsibility almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Right.
I think it's on us and we're allowing this to happen. People don't like that.
Right.
We are, by not doing anything, we are allowing them to pollute the
Yeah.
world. It is our
That
responsibility.
means we have power. That means we have the power to change it. But
because we do.
But most people don't feel like they have power.
Yeah.
We feel like we're just like being controlled by the elites or whatever. We're just stuck in this system and like we don't really have power over it. But do we?
This might be a hot take. I think humans are cowards. I really do.
Ooh.
I think we're cowards. We don't like, we just want to live and we'll do anything just to live. I feel like the idea of a revolution is so scary because people are going to die like that. And not necessarily even like, it's hard to imagine a revolution where it doesn't become physical. I like to say conscious revolution because it would have to change the way we think, but people aren't just going to give up their assets and their, like the people in power are not just going to hand it over. That's not going to happen. So it's probably going to get violent. But I often think about this question. Why don't slaves and let's say anybody in the past in history that went under persecution, let's say like Jews in the Holocaust, slaves, why didn't they just all like attempt to run at them or anything, revolt? Why not revolt? Because you're going to die if you do, you think, but is it worth staying alive? Is being alive that worth it to go through a terrible exploitation, I guess, if you want to say?
Right.
So like, are we just cowards that we want to live so much, but we don't want to die?
I guess it's our instinct to just keep living. Like,
no matter if our
situation is bad.
Right. No matter the circumstances, it's still living, I guess.
Right. I guess, we need to move on. Like we just got to stay in the game. Like we can't.
It's scary too, because like, we don't know what happens after death. I'm not scared to die. No, I was just gonna say.
Are you scared? Like, what if like I meet God up there and it's like, I don't know, like there's.
I saw your TikTok, bro. You don't believe in me? All right. No, I'm not scared of death, but I don't want to die until I attempt to have my impact on this world. Like I want people to hear what I have to say, whether it has an impact at all, a good one, a bad one, whatever. I just want to get my voice out there. This is what I think about us. And then I'll be okay to die. I don't think granted, I'll probably be talking about this for the rest of my life and I'll think I'm never done. But right now, if I die, this is a crazy thing. I had a dream that I died in the dream. And after I died in the dream, I just remember I was like yelling that I wasn't finished yet. Like I wasn't done yet, which is so fucking crazy.
It's really cool.
That's how I feel. Like if I died, I think that's how I would feel. I'd be like, I had so much more to say and do.
Right.
So I'm not scared of death because it happens to everyone. I wasn't scared of birth, which had to happen in order to even die. It's funny. We think that birth is such a beautiful thing and death is such a terrible thing when one couldn't exist without the other. They go hand in hand.
Yeah, death is really just part of life.
It is.
It's part of the cycle of life.
It's just the cycle.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about oh God.
Oh yeah. So in Civilized to Death, Christopher Ryan also mentions this. Like we are obsessed with death, like overly obsessed. Like we're afraid of it. Like the way in which we're so afraid of death and we're so separate from death also. Like that's what's kind of weird about us in this society or in this time period. like death is just supposed to be part of the cycle of life. It's just supposed to be part of life. Like animals don't animals don't stress about death. Like they're just kind of living like they try to not die, but they're not like thinking about it all the time. Or like,
not that we know of, but yeah. And we
it's really interesting.
Like think about it.
Yeah, it's like we're so kind of removed from like actually living like actual life, and that's kind of why we're so afraid of death. Is because we're so detached from life.
Yeah.
That like we can't handle the concept of death anymore.
And like, yeah, it's just so great. You know, I love how Christopher Ryan says that it's a fair trade. Like they say that he said, even if death lasts an hour, it's like a 0.06% of the time you've been on this planet. So if you die for an hour, that seems like a pretty fair trade. Like be alive for this long and experience death for an hour. You know what I mean? Like it's not a bad trade. It's really not.
Yeah, sure.
Like it's not that bad.
Yeah, an hour's not long at all.
Compared to the whole life you've lived.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy. And now we try to prevent death as much as we can, but it actually is.
But yeah, because it's like it's almost like you're only going to be afraid of death if you don't know what your purpose is in life. Or like if you don't think you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish in life, then you'll be afraid of death. But if you feel like you accomplished what your life's purpose was, or you feel like you did what you needed to do, then death is just, death is the end of it, right? You did what you needed to do, like it's over, right? There's no fear, there's nothing wrong, right? So death is only scary if you're confused about what you need to do.
And if you're unsatisfied, that's why I really noticed that like, don't not try anything. You don't want to be on your deathbed thinking I should have done this, I should have done that.
Yeah.
You just got to do it. You got to if you have an idea or something you really want to do, you just got to do it. Because one day you're going to be so pissed that you didn't. And you won't be able to rest easy if you're thinking those thoughts when you're about to die.
Right.
I should have done this.
Regrets.
If you don't have any regrets, you're sitting there when you're dying, you're just like, I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to fucking go.
You feel like job well done, like you accomplished your.
Yeah, like Thanos after he snapped. You're just sitting
there.
Right,
exactly. Like he's finished. The work is done.
Yeah,
I've won.
Yeah, and then you just rest.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
Right.
It's also like, I think Christopher Ryan says it, where in death for certain animals, especially, and I know for us, we release DMT when we die. In our brains. Yeah. Do you know that DMT is actually in our brains right now? But there is a component or something. There's like something in our brains that doesn't activate the DMT. But when you die, they've done like scans of brains when they die, and you see a huge explosion of DMT. Which I don't know how much you know about DMT. I don't know much about it either.
Yeah, I know it's like a really powerful psychedelic.
I know it's an insane psychedelic that people, when they do it, they live whole life's in it. 40 years of life in 10 minutes in real time. So just imagine what we're going to experience. Like, what if death is just a trip on an everlasting trip on that DMT death?
In those last moments of death, like you just start tripping and like you live, like what if in the moments of death, you relive your whole life. Like you start tripping out and you're like, you just like see your whole life. Like,
I mean, this is a stretch. Like, what if, I mean, obviously not, but what if right now, like where I'm on a DMT trip and I died before this.
Yeah. What if you already died and this is just your trip? This is just you reliving your life.
I don't know,
but
it's
so crazy.
Death is, I know in the book, at least I think, he says that like when a deer dies or something like that, an animal, in their death, they actually have like a component in their brain that turns off the pain and alleviates the pain of dying. So it's so like natural. And that's so like, nature's so fucking cool. The fact that like
cool.
It makes death like so easy.
Makes death less painful.
You did your job. The job of an organism is to do the cycle of life.
Right, exactly.
Birth, reproduce and die.
That's the job of an organism, is to just live.
Yeah.
It's to just live life, basically.
That's it.
It's all,
Well, I was thinking today, I was eating like fruit, and I was like, first of all, fruit are smart as fuck because their job is to get cycled, right? They make themselves taste so good that we eat them, and getting eaten reproduces that, like not reproduces, but gets them in the system again, the life cycle. Which is so fucking smart.
They try to attract animals so that they can spread the seeds. Like the seeds are in the fruit, and it spreads the seeds that way. Yeah, like they're
so genius. No one thinks of that because it's a stupid plant. No, that's next level shit.
Right.
And like I think about how all of our life we just consume. We're eating living things constantly. And we're getting, I think it's what, like 10% of its energy. I know that, I think that's, or it's like 0.10. Every time we eat something, we get 10% of its energy or something like that. So think of how many things you've eaten in your lifetime. Like it's quite a lot.
Yeah. It is, like if you collect all of it,
think of all the imagine if you saw all the animals you've ever eaten in your lifetime lined up, like
wow.
It'd be a lot. It'd be really big.
You're like a mass murderer. You're like you can look how many animals you killed. Look how many animals you ate.
Yeah. Just slaughtered everywhere.
Right. Like 5,000 chickens and like 6,000 cows.
Give us responsibility almost. Because you're like, these things died for you to live on.
Right.
Which is so beautiful. And like, we don't see it as that way. And I think foraging groups and natives were really in tune with that. They realized that every animal, has an importance. Like everything about them should be, they never wasted anything. Like when they killed an animal,
so much more respect.
It
like respect for the natural world, and like they respected, like they thought the earth was like a benevolent like giver. Or just give them like it literally is. Like I don't know why we don't look at it that way.
I know.
Like it's just giving us these things, and like we're just like taking it. Like we don't appreciate that at all.
Dude, I always like it's such a fundamental and concrete statement, but it's so fucking true. The earth is the reason we're alive.
Yeah.
And we treat it like shit.
Exactly.
Acting like it isn't the reason we are here.
Right. Like the earth is literally like God, basically.
It's our God. It is our God. Yeah, honestly.
It created us. It literally, we came out of the earth, basically. And like we're trashing it. We're like wrecking havoc on it. Like
we created our own vision that a God above this earth is creating us.
Right.
That's the dangers of consciousness. I feel like we act like we're bigger than this earth and shit. And I don't think it's that complex. I think it's very simple. The earth, we're made of the earth, and the earth made us, and it's cycling, and it's giving us everything we need to live. And then I'm surprised there isn't how like there's basically three huge religions: Christianity, Judaism, and I don't know,
Hinduism. I think
Hinduism. Yeah. Those are the biggest. Biggest. Islam. Yeah, I was gonna say Islam. Those are the three biggest. But how is there not a religion that worships the earth? How is that not the biggest religion?
Exactly.
You would think that's so fucking concrete. Like, okay, we're from this earth. Okay, I believe that. I don't even need to believe it. It's a fact.
Right. We're from this earth, and we should respect the earth and take care of it. Like, isn't that the most obvious thing? Like,
isn't that so obvious? But no, there's a person or an entity creating this, and we have to thank him instead of
some like invisible like deity from some other dimension that created us. It's like we feel so detached from the world. It's like we think we're from another dimension. Like people think their souls come from like heaven, right?
Yeah.
Like we come from somewhere else. Like we're not our bodies. Like your body's just a temporary, it's just like some temporary thing. This world, meat suit, and this whole world is just like a temporary world in order for you to pass through and go to heaven. And heaven is like the real world. where God lives and that's where your soul comes from. It's so weird. Like we feel like we're not part of this world.
I feel like we almost like the fact that we'll never get there. We keep pushing off. You know, we're like, all right, yeah, when we get to heaven, like I'm going to do good in this life. So the next life, it's great. Or I'm going to work really hard in this life. So my kids in their life will be great. We keep pushing it off. I don't know why. Because it seems very evident that this is it right here.
Yeah.
This is it for what I know and what you know.
Yeah. I mean, just look around. Like it's all that really appears to be there.
Every time I wake up, I'm back in this reality.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I do know. So funny that you can't escape this reality without dying.
Right.
I guess psychedelics and drugs you can, but you really can't leave this place until you die. And who knows what happens when you die?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's really fucking crazy.
It really is.
Wow. That's a way to start your morning.
Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to focus in class today. Like I'll be thinking about all this crazy stuff.
Oh man. Yeah. But you can just it's so funny how you can just turn it off though, kind of, and then just go back to being a normal human.
It's like a switch, like click, click, right. Become
normal
human again. Forget all this stuff. Focus on like,
it's almost like, oh God.
Oh, wait.
Oh God.
It's almost like we need to detach ourselves in order to like live like a normal human. Like in order to think about the things we need to do and like think about our jobs and all these things, we have to like detach from these thoughts. Like we can't be thinking about these things while we're getting the job done, right? It's like we need to detach in order to do what needs to be done to get the job done, I guess.
And what does that say about the way we're living?
Yeah.
The foragers they don't have a word for work.
Yeah.
They don't have a word for work. Everyone, I'm going to work. Oh, it takes a lot of work. Oh, I got to work on it. This mentality of that we're not.
Yeah.
No, man. Like
exactly. Like for foragers, work is really just life.
Life.
It's really just part of life.
They don't confuse.
Exactly.
They don't divide work and play.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Like when they go out to hunt, like that's like a sport for them almost.
Yeah, it's
like
fun.
That's a game. It's fun. It's like that's life. Like we got to go play this game. We got to go hunt. And like the kids, when the kids are playing, they're really like practicing their hunting skills. They're running around, chasing each other. So it's just like living. Like that's what animals do too. They just hunt. They just like there's no work. Like work is this. They just do what they are meant to do basically, without having to like create this other idea of like we have to like detach from life and just work. It's really kind of weird.
That's where we parted from the forager mindset.
Yeah.
I think that's where we departed. We dissociated ourselves basically. And then we've stuck to this type of consciousness, and really consciousness they had where they just, oh man, it's so like my cat doesn't go to the litter box and think, oh, I got to fucking scoop this shit out. Like I gotta, you know what I mean? Like they're not like thinking that's work. They're just doing it. And we have somehow used our consciousness to get away from the fact that we just are and things just is.
Yeah. Like that's why nature is just like so beautiful to me. It's just like, it just is like, it's just at peace with itself. It's just like existing and just like content in every way. Like there's no, whereas humans, like we're always just like, like we're not like that at all.
We put our funny little labels on everything and try to, I don't know, man. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
All right, man.
It's wild.
Been fucking dope talking to you.
Yeah, great conversation.
Do you have anything you want to, put out there? Anything? You could put like.
Not really. What?
I don't know. I don't know. Like if you wanted
I don't
to,
have any YouTube channels or anything like that.
All right. Yeah, I got you. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Appreciate talking to you.
I'd be down to do this again sometime if you want.
yeah, maybe we should.
All right,
Sure.
been dope.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man.